Brandon and Julia's shocking plan leaves his parents speechless. 90-day fiancé. You know that moment when someone you love looks you straight in the eye, and you suddenly realize you don't actually know them anymore. Yeah, that's exactly what just happened in 90-day fiancé. Brandon and Julia dropped a bomb that didn't just shock their parents, it shattered their image of who their son even was. And honestly, this might be one of the most emotional and realist family moments in the show's entire history. When Julia said, "We'll kinda have a plan, but no, we don't know how long we're gonna be there," my jaw hit the floor. Because that wasn't just a casual line. It was the sound of two people running on faith, not logic. And for Brandon's parents, it was betrayal. Let's be real. These are the same parents who have micromanaged every second of Brandon's adult life. They built him into the man they thought he was: safe, structured, obedient. And then, one random afternoon he says he's quitting his job, flying off with Julia and might not come back. No warning, no discussion, just chaos. But here's where it gets wild. Because if you listen closely, this isn't just about a trip. It's a rebellion disguised as a vacation. The moment Brandon's mom says, "I can't believe we spent our life teaching Brandon to plan, to do the right things," you can hear her voice crack. That's not anger. That's heartbreak. She's realizing her son has chosen freedom over approval. And tell me if you've ever been in that same position, when you made one decision that you knew would make your family look at you differently forever. Because this is that moment for Brandon. And Julia, she knows it. She's sitting there quietly, but you can feel her guilt. That uncomfortable half smile, the silence that feels like a confession. Because in her eyes, this isn't rebellion, it's survival. See, Julia has always been the outsider, the foreign fiancé, the problem child in their family story. From the moment she arrived, it wasn't "welcome home," it was "follow our rules." She's been living in someone else's world since the start. And when you've spent years being controlled, that moment of breaking free, it's messy, it's emotional, and it's powerful. But the part that really breaks me, when Brandon's dad steps in, calm but crushed, and says, "This scares me, I'm really disappointed." Because this isn't just a dad talking. This is a man realizing that all those years of guiding, teaching, protecting, didn't prepare his son for independence, it prepared him for obedience. And Brandon's breaking that cycle. But at what cost? This is where the tension in 90-day fiancé hits a level most people miss. Everyone's focusing on the drama. He quit his job. They didn't tell his parents. But the real story is emotional evolution. The forbidden step every child eventually takes, choosing themselves over their parents' approval. And the irony, his parents taught him to be logical. But love doesn't follow logic. Julia isn't just his wife. She's the symbol of everything they can't control. And when control breaks, emotions explode. But before I unpack the hidden meaning behind that final, devastating line, maybe you do need to go back to Russia. I need you to stop and think about something. Would you ever walk away from everything safe and familiar, just for a chance at real freedom? Drop your answer in the comments below, because I'm genuinely curious how many of you would risk it all for love, when everyone says you're crazy. And hey, if you love diving into these raw, emotional, forbidden truths reality TV tries to gloss over, you need to subscribe right now. Because on Breakdown Epic, we don't just talk about the show, we expose what's really going on underneath it. Now, let's go deeper. Because that one line, "a couple of days, we already bought our tickets," sounds simple, right? But it's a ticking bomb wrapped in a smile. It's the kind of quiet rebellion you can only pull off once in your life. You can literally feel the temperature shift in the room. His parents freeze. There's no cheering, no "good luck." Just silence. That painful silence that says you're not who we thought you were. And that's where it gets dark. Because Brandon's mom doesn't just feel betrayed, she feels replaced. Replaced by Julia, by love, by a version of her son that no longer needs permission to exist. That's why she snaps. "If you don't feel like we're family, maybe you do need to go back to Russia." That's not just anger. That's grief disguised as patriotism. She's not rejecting Julia. She's rejecting the loss of her son. And Julia, for once, doesn't fight back. She knows she's being blamed for a transformation she didn't cause. She only inspired it. This scene, right here, isn't just family drama. It's the emotional apocalypse that happens when two generations love differently. One side believes love means control. The other believes love means freedom. And the moment those two collide, no one wins. You ever notice how in every 90-day fiancé family conflict, it's never really about the decision, it's about control. Because let's be honest, this isn't about plane tickets. It's about permission. Brandon's mom doesn't just want to know where he's going. She wants to approve of where he's going. And that's the difference between love that nurtures and love that suffocates. See, in her mind, she raised a responsible man. But in his mind, he's been living as a child wearing adult clothes. And this, quitting his job, packing bags, leaving in days, it's not just a trip. It's his escape from the life they built for him, not with him. And the wild part, you can tell Brandon's terrified. That fake calm in his voice. "You know me, I wouldn't take this kind of risk unless it was absolutely necessary." That's not confidence. That's survival language. He's trying to convince himself as much as them. Because when your entire identity has been shaped around pleasing your parents, Choosing yourself feels like betrayal, and that's why his dad's disappointment hits so hard. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't yell, he just says, "This scares me." That's it. 3 words that say everything a parent can't. I'm scared you'll fail. I'm scared I lost you. I'm scared you don't need me anymore. But what no one admits, not even the parents, is that disappointment isn't always about your choices. Sometimes, it's about the reflection they see in you. Because when Brandon chooses uncertainty over security, he's showing them something they never had the courage to do. Risk it all for love. And that's the real forbidden truth hiding in this episode. The older generation built stability out of fear. The younger generation builds freedom out of chaos. And both think the other is wrong. That's why this scene hurts so much. Because no one here is the villain. Not Julia. Not Brandon. Not even his parents. They're all just trying to love each other in ways that don't fit anymore. And I think that's what makes this moment so hauntingly relatable. How many of us have felt that exact tension? Wanting to grow but terrified of disappointing the people who raised us. Drop it in the comments if you've ever had to make a decision your family just didn't understand. I'm curious how many of you out there have felt that pull between love and independence. Now, here's something most people missed. When Julia says, "We all family," she's not just defending herself, she's begging for inclusion. It's one of those quiet moments where her accent, her tone, even her broken English carry more emotion than 1,000 words. Because that's the immigrant ache. The need to belong, even in a room that keeps reminding you that you don't. And then Brandon's mom fires back. "Maybe you do need to go back to Russia." Oof. That's not just a line, that's an emotional nuke. And what makes it worse? Julia doesn't fight back. She just stares. It's the silence of someone who's been accused of stealing something she never wanted to take. But let's talk about the psychology of that moment. Because this is where 90 Day Fiancé hits deeper than anyone gives it credit for. When people feel powerless, they attack what they can still control. And for Brandon's mom, that's Julia. It's easier to say, "You're tearing the family apart," than to admit, "My son is growing up and I can't stop it." It's easier to blame a person than confront your own loss. And that's what this dinner scene is. A funeral for the version of Brandon that existed before Julia. Now, if you've watched Breakdown Epic before, you know we love to dig into the forbidden psychology behind these reality moments. The parts that aren't scripted, but feel too real to fake. And this one, it's a masterclass in emotional exposure. Notice how Brandon keeps repeating lines like, "We're still family." That's guilt talking. Because deep down, he knows he's crossing a line he can't uncross. "We're still family," is code for, "Please still love me even if I leave." And that's what hits the hardest. Because sometimes growing up doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like loss. Let's be honest. How many of you have ever moved out, started a new relationship, or made a big decision, and suddenly, your parents acted like you'd betrayed them? Yeah, that silent guilt. That distance. That tension you can't name. That's the same energy right here. And Julia, she's paying the emotional tax for it. Because when you're the outsider in a tight, knit family, your love is always on probation. One wrong move, and they say you're the reason everything changed. But the irony, they're right. Things did change. Because that's what love does. Love rearranges the power dynamics. Love forces people to grow or get left behind. And for the first time, Brandon isn't choosing comfort. He's choosing courage. But here's what I think no one's brave enough to admit. Sometimes, you have to lose the family you were born into to build the one you were meant for. That's what Julia and Brandon are doing. Clumsily, emotionally, imperfectly, but bravely. And that's why his parents' reaction is so heartbreaking. They're not just losing control. They're losing their identity as parents. Because once your kid doesn't need your permission anymore, who are you to them now? That's the question 90 Day Fiancé never says out loud. And that's why this moment, this quiet, awkward, feels like the realest breakup the show has ever filmed. Not between lovers, between generations. So when the mom says, "We're all family," and Julia whispers, "No, now we in different sides," that's it. That's the end of innocence. Because love didn't fail here. Understanding did. And that's the haunting beauty of this episode. It's not about who's right. It's about who's brave enough to admit that being right doesn't always keep people together. And if that hit you the way it hit me, if you've ever felt torn between love and independence, loyalty and freedom, then you already know why this moment matters more than any engagement, wedding, or visa drama. Because this is what real emotional courage looks like. And before we wrap up, tell me in the comments, do you think Brandon made the right choice? Or was this the biggest mistake of his life? I'll be reading your takes because honestly, this one's dividing fans like never before. And hey, if you've made it this far, you're clearly one of the real ones. So make sure you're subscribed to Breakdown Epic, where we don't just watch reality TV, we decode it. Because the truth is behind every shocking plan, there's always a deeper story waiting to be told. And sometimes, the most rebellious thing you can do is grow up.